So Dricus du Plessis came out and just expressed his displeasure with the fact that Khamzat Chimaev looks to be the new number one contender for Sean Strickland's middleweight title. Now, I can definitely understand where Dricus du Plessis is coming from. It was only, a couple of months ago now that he beat Robert Whittaker, and it was an incredibly impressive performance. Not many people expected it. I certainly didn't expect him to dominate Rob the way he did and get a finish, so fair play to him on that front. But I mean, we're really surprised by this. The UFC is a business at the end of the day. Du Plessis said that he couldn't fight Adesanya due to an injury, and it looks like the UFC's now moved on from that, which, is pretty commonplace for them. This isn't the first time that they've done it. At the end of the day, Khamzat Chimaev is a dominant and very impressive fighter. Unlike du Plessis, he has a lot more fanfare. And at the end of the day, it's just going to make UFC more money. It's better business for Khamzat Chimaev to be the champion. And he went on MMA Guru's YouTube channel recently and just made some comments. So he was very dismissive of Khamzat Chimaev's credentials. And he goes on to say, I mean, if I knew that, I would have fought a welterweight too, rather than getting my title shot. That seems a little bit easier. I'd rather do that next. Du Plessis joked in reference to Chimaev's victory, and he goes on to say that if that was 5 rounds, I think Kamaru Usman would have finished Chimaev. That just shows you the caliber of fighter Usman is. And look, I don't necessarily disagree with that, but the reality of the situation is it wasn't a 5-round fight. It was a 3-round fight. So Khamzat Chimaev fought like it was a 3-round fight. Maybe if it was a 5-round fight, he would have paced himself a little bit more. But you can't just go around and make all these sorts of assumptions based off Khamzat Chimaev's performance. In my opinion, it was a very, very good performance. And you can't go saying, if this happened, if that happened. It's just, it doesn't really look good. Obviously, Kamaru Usman isn't a middleweight fighter. He might be now, but he hasn't really fought at middleweight before, or if he has, he hasn't really fought there in quite a long time. So I sort of get what he's saying there. For Khamzat Chimaev to get a title shot, he needs to beat some contenders at middleweight. And I can get what he's saying, but look, du Plessis, it's just not going to happen. And he went on to diss Khamzat Chimaev further. He says that Khamzat, the self-proclaimed boogeyman, is not so boogie after all. If I was there, maybe in the first round, yeah, I'm sure he could get me down. That's fine. I'm not scared to get taken down because that he has to deal with me on the floor. But it wasn't the highest paced fight, and he was so tired. And he was fighting a welterweight. If Khamzat's going to start dealing with the top middleweights with their power and weight, it's not going to work out like that. Khamzat can be very, very glad that Paulo Costa pulled out. I think Costa would have smoked him. Now, I could disagree with that. Paulo Costa hasn't really been fighting for very long. And I think Khamzat Chimaev is a much better grappler than what Paulo Costa is. And in all likelihood, he would have got that submission on Paulo Costa within the first round. I think Kamaru Usman is levels above what Paulo Costa is. So I just don't really agree with du Plessis here. But at least he did go on to acknowledge the fact that the fight game isn't fair and the UFC is going to do what the UFC pleases. And at least he sees that. At least he sees why he isn't getting a title shot. The UFC doesn't like it when fighters decline fights. And it's pretty unclear the seriousness of du Plessis' injury. Maybe the reason the UFC is moving on is because they didn't really see his injury as something that was incredibly important. And from their perspective, they thought that he could have fought the fight with that injury that he has, but who actually knows? But what are your thoughts on the whole Khamzat Chimaev and du Plessis situation? Do you think Khamzat Chimaev deserves this title shot, or are you a little bit pissed off that du Plessis has now been left on ice? Feel free to let me know in the comment section below. Take care, everyone.